Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. I hope everyone's hanging in and doing as best as possible, all things considered these days. Um, I'm Aleko. We're back with our third installment of the Foxhole. If you were with us a couple of weeks ago, Zach, Gabby, and I told funny stories from our own travels over the past few years. Last week, we had Adam, Ali, and Joel give us a great little update about our office in Natasha. And we had Rick Reinhardt and George Howell on to talk a little bit about the early days of Puma, which was really fun, and a little bit about the current market situation. And this week, we have some of our best buds in the coffee industry here to tell a story of their own from their own travels. We have Emma Chevalier from Revelator, Katie Carjula from Counterculture, Charlie Goodluck from Color, Ryan Knapp from Madcap. Is John on yet? We have Dylan from Parlor and John from Modest Coffee Lab. All-star team. Here we are. So it should be fun. Probably last 30, 40 minutes, maybe even an hour. Who knows? But let's get started. I don't know if we have a victim who'd like to go first at this point, but we should get started with someone's funny story. Anyone want to go first?
It's your podcast.
It's our podcast.
Yeah, you got to go first, I think.
Why don't you start with that video?
You want to go first, Ryan?
Sure. Did you get that video, Zach? I sent you an email.
Oh, yeah, I got it. Perfect. All right. Just give me.
I can line it up for you. First.
Oh, God. I just watched.
Yeah, so we're going to get there.
Hold it together.
So I'm going to share a story. This was actually the first time Aleko and I did a trip together. So this was years back, back when Red Fox was just a baby. I don't know, just when I started buying coffee. Actually my first trip to Peru. So we went out to the Puno region, and just in general, like Puno is like one of the most magical places in general. So we get out there, we meet up in Juliaca, where I don't know, you're well over like 4,000 meters above sea level, and just immediately you land and your head's just like pounding. And the wise thing to do would be to hydrate, but of course had a couple beers and just starts pounding more. And so it's a pretty intense intro. But then to get to where the coffee's at, you've got at least an 8-hour drive out to the coffee region. So you climb up a little bit in elevation and you start driving through like just some of the most gorgeous scenery. You're just like, wrapping around the mountainside. There's alpaca all over the road. With the higher elevation comes like freezing cold temperatures. So it's back when I used to like travel with like 2 articles of clothing. I think I was like 2 weeks into a trip and had like a t-shirt and a sweatshirt. So we went to a little supermarket and bought some sweaters to zip up and found like just the most ridiculous clothes to warm up for the freezing cold drive out there.
So 5,000 meters over the Altiplano.
Yeah. You're on top of the world. So, but yeah, once we started settling down and got into the coffee region, we did what I guess most coffee buyers do after they drive for about 10 hours. We went to a cupping lab and just started cupping right away. And we cupped through a table of coffees, and we came across one that was just like brilliant. It was just super stunning. And after the cupping, we got some lunch, and the producer of the coffee was in town, Raul, and we got to eat lunch with him. And we was like, wow, your coffee's stunning. He starts telling us about his farm. And we're like, I think we had a whole agenda of what we were going to do the next day. And it's like, can we visit your farm? And he's like, yeah, sure, absolutely. The only catch is it's a 4-hour walk to my farm from the city. And we just like looked at each other and it's like, cool, let's do it. And Yeah, I was in like the worst shape of my life too, probably at the time. But we just like went for it and it's like, okay, let's do this. So the next morning we got off to like a really early start. Um, and I used to, fun fact, I used to like only bring like one pair of shoes on trips. And I was really into barefoot shoes. I still love barefoot shoes, but it's a terrible idea for walking through the mud. It's just not a great hiking shoe by any means, but I had my barefoot shoes and just like, hell yeah, let's do this. And it was like drizzling the entire trip. So throughout like the 4 hours, which was a beautiful walk, the way up, I probably biffed it like a dozen different times. Like I fell down. I had like my one pair of jeans for the trip and it was covered in mud. And it was a lot of nice first time hanging out. So it's like great first impression, you know? So it's just busting through it, doing my thing. And finally we get to the farm and Raul, aside from like super cool coffee, he also had these pet coatis, which are like a civic-like cat that you find in Latin America. And there's a market for, you know, this cat shit coffee essentially that he sold a little bit of. So these coatis, one of the things I remember most is their cherry selection was just like impeccable. They'd like climb up on the tree and it's just like they're picking ripe cherries, eating it, of course. And then they'd like return back and shit it out and they'd keep it separate on the side. But they're just kind of this magical creature. I don't know if any of you have interacted with them at all, but they're kind of like this mix between, it looks more like a cat, like a raccoon type mix, but they're really, really friendly like a dog, but they'll crawl around you like a cat. So the pets would like just jump up on your shoulders and they'd like sit on your neck and lick your ear. So of course we were just leaning into it, you know. We're animal lovers, so it's just like we're going for it. And there was one that like took a liking to Aleko. I think her name was Princessa actually, but she really liked him and just like kept crawling up and down him. And she was just like hanging out on his shoulder, so he's like walking around with this pet on his shoulder. And at one moment he's just like, "Hey dude, take a video of me." And I'm just like, "Okay, yeah, I got you." So I pull out my camera. And mind you, you know, like I've been slipping this whole time, but I'm with a professional, you know, so he didn't fall at all. And so I pull out my camera and start filming him. And I think the first step, he just fucking biffed it and just like went sliding down the hill. And it was pretty great to get that on camera. So, but yeah, all in all,
Do you want me to share the video?
yeah, you should pull it up.
Okay.
So.
All right, everybody's, I think, gonna probably see more than they want to here.
The first year of a Red Fox. Yeah. Impeccable timing.
Can you see it?
You can see your whole
Here we go.
stuff.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right.
Coati on the shoulder. I mean, it didn't work.
I love how you grab the tree to like try and save yourself.
Mine's going in like clips, not a full whatever.
Is it not working well? Let's play it again. Whoa!
I kind of like it in slow motion.
It is good in slow motion. What happened to the cat? Did it like land on a tree?
It jumped off right away and like took off, yeah, to the woods or something.
I knew we would get some
going down and was like, safety. Okay, just the beginning one more time. Oh boy. Oh.
RJ wants to know if we ever saw the cat again. We did. We actually remain friends to this day, I believe.
Oh man, great timing on picking up that video. Did it work? Can people see it?
kind of not as good as you, I don't think, but
Yeah.
we got the gist. That was rad. I knew we would get some potential shit stories, but not a cat shit story.
Yeah. Ryan bridged the gap on the poop
There we go.
stories.
Yeah.
Good job. Who's up next? Don't be bashful.
I'll tell a story. So we do an Origin scholarship every year where we have baristas that have worked for us for a year kind of apply, and then we take them on a buy-in trip. And I think our third or fourth trip, we sort of change origins every time. We were going to Colombia, flew into Nariño, which if you've flown that flight, you know, is like you don't usually make the first landing anyways, right? You do a pass by.
Sure.
So already, this was everyone's, I think we had four baristas the first time they'd been out of the country. And 2 vegetarians, which was a mistake on that trip at least. And so everyone's kind of freaked out already because, you know, the pilot gets on there and says like, hey, okay, we have 3 attempts. We have fuel for 3 attempts. You know, if we don't make the first, we'll do another pass by. If we don't make the second, we'll talk it over. If we don't make the third, we're going back, kind of thing. We kind of skid and bounce around and land it because, you know, you land like on this crazy plateau and then the runway sort of ends on the mountainside. Make it, everything seems good, and everyone's a little bit woozy and nauseous, and we immediately jump into a vehicle and head to a couple farms. And we were visiting like an association to do some cuppings and talk through a couple relationships we had and pull up to this farm, and we hadn't eaten anything, and so the woman that owned the farm, she was going to provide a meal, and it was really generous, and she actually had a beautiful farm. She's like, okay, so like if you want to just go like pick out your meal and sort of see what you want, and opens this door and lets us into her guinea pig farm, to which every barista was supposed to pick out or actually catch the guinea pig that we were to eat.
Oh, no.
Which,
Katie, is this your worst nightmare?
I'm sorry. Which, you know, at
okay.
that point, I'd already kind of like, you know, done the talk of like, hey, we want to be hospitable and like we want to respect cultures. And I'm not like asking you to do things that you don't feel comfortable, but also take into consideration that like these are generous things. And this was a talk obviously before we left. And so there was a real moral conundrum going on. It's like some people wanted to chase the guinea pig to pick out, but then it was sort of like, people were making excuses. There's a few like compromise that like I think got to see what real hunger was like, and so they like lamented and went ahead and ate the guinea pig.
Yeah, those are rough moments.
Yeah, all those Origin scholarship trips always have something interesting.
Yeah, and they never
to
came
say
back
the least.
again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Was that at Raquel Lasso's house?
It was at Raquel's. Yes.
She has like that Cooey stadium. It's insane.
That's exactly right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Hundreds, maybe.
And clean it right there. It was.
The sounds of the squeaking is deafening.
Oh man. You know, it's pretty tasty. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but
Yeah, it's not bad. Once you get through all of the skin, it's a little thick.
right. Yeah, it's like chicharron a little bit. Yeah. Carry on, someone else.
Thanks, John. Good one.
Well, I guess I should jump in here. So I actually should have jumped sooner because Ryan pretty much told most of my story. I was going to tell the Puno voyage.
Man, sorry. You can double down.
All good. So yeah, I mean, don't need to repeat the details. Landing at 12,000 plus feet is head throbbing to say the least. Had a great voyage with Aleco. I think we might have arrived a little bit earlier into Juliaca than you did because we drove all day and didn't get to Putina Punco in the heart of coffee country until after dark. Went straight to have dinner with our hosts, T-Bed and his family for some chicken, and thankfully it wasn't guinea pig. and yeah, we're all just decompressing after this like 8-hour drive through the Andes, and you know, ready to drink some beers. And we go out into the town square, and we crack open a couple of like giant beer bottles that T-Bed grabbed for us. And as we're standing there drinking the beers, T-Bed is telling Aleko some stuff. Of course, I at the time knew even less Spanish than I can hear now. And Aleko starts to translate and says, "So they actually banned drinking in the town last week because there was a brawl at the bar." We're just standing right in the middle of town with these like tall boy bottles and realizing that we're not only just three gringos standing there, but we're actually breaking the law in the middle of the town. So yeah, that's my most PG memory of a Red Fox.
Yeah.
Red Fox origin.
That is fairly famous. That was the Mano Campesina, because there was an argument. The Mano Campesina is kind of like this rural governance group, very casual, definitely not affiliated with any like local government by any means, but they're a group of locals, and they're in most rural communities in Peru, that actually govern the day-to-day of what's happening, because to see police officers in some of those most distant places is rare. And what had happened was there was a huge bar fight a week or so before we got down there, and someone lit a rag in one of the other guys' pickup trucks and blew it up.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they banned drinking in this community for a few months or something altogether. No one was allowed to drink. Really? Yeah.
Pretty much like the Wild West out there, I would say.
Mm-hmm. No one was injured in the explosion.
Thankfully.
Yeah.
We didn't get arrested, for the record. We
Did not get arrested. We got away.
were able to finish our beers, thank God.
Let's hear from one of the ladies.
I can try and tell a story, or I guess the first thing that I sort of wanted to talk about was like some of the things that I've learned through my trips. On the first trip that I took, I remember being really concerned about having snacks with me, because I thought that, oh, we're going to be out in the field all day, and like, what if I run out of energy? But that first trip was to Ethiopia, and what I learned from that trip was that it was more important to actually pack coffee, because Ethiopia is one of the places where you don't get to drink coffee throughout the day. In Colombia, when you go visit a farm, they will give you a tinto. But in Ethiopia, I only got to experience one coffee ceremony. But some other things that I have found it really important. I'm like, by nature, always over prepared. I'm the person that's always trying to shift my time zone like a day or two before I get on the plane. You know, like I'll stay up all night and then get on the plane and try and sleep, so I'm on African time zone when I get there.
Very prepared. Yeah.
You know, definitely bringing things like a prescription to Cipro, because I've got urinary tract infections while I've been traveling. Things like this are pretty important. But one thing that I started doing that I actually, Aleko, heard that you did, and I thought was a really good idea, is that when I travel places, besides bringing roasted coffee and things for myself to drink, I usually bring green coffee to give to the labs there. Coffee from other origins, because a cupper in Colombia doesn't really have a lot of opportunity to roast coffees from Kenya or Ethiopia and taste those. So that's one of like my travel packages that I bring. It's green coffee, and of course, like, you know, hoodies, mugs, sweatshirts, gifts to give, because people, when we visit people at origin, I guess gift culture is a bigger thing in some other places, but people are always showering us with such generous gifts, and I would feel like just very guilty if I had nothing to pass off in return. But the actual travel story that I have is also from Nariño, Colombia. One of my favorite travel things to do was to be part of the advisory group for the CRS Borderlands project, which ended, I think, officially in 2017. I know that, Adam, you were part of that for a few years. But mostly they would bring a group of coffee buyers down and meeting with the farmers that they had organized into associations. And so we would do farm visits. We would sit in on presentations from the organizations about all of the work that they had done over the past year. We'd sit in on like presentations from CIAT or from the government of Colombia about some higher level coffee research stuff, obviously do cupping competitions. But one year they asked me to do what they called like a show de barismo. And I was very apprehensive to do it because basically they just wanted me to like recreate a barista competition and talk to anyone in attendance about what that was about. And I was like, I don't know, I haven't competed in a barista competition in like 4 years. And you know, I'm not gonna be able to make a signature drink. Like, I don't know what the point of this is. But then I started, as I was doing it, I got really excited about it because I felt like this is actually something that I'm uniquely qualified to do. Like, you don't have to be the best barista in the world at that moment to be able to share and impart knowledge. And that's a really big part of a trip. It's not just putting faces to names and deepening relationships and understanding supply chains. It's really about exchange of information. So as much as I was taking from learning about like, okay, what is this association all about? How am I going to write the bio for this coffee that I want to sell? It's like, what am I bringing to this situation to be able to help farmers understand? And they had great questions just about like, how do baristas pick coffees that they take to competition? And, you know, what kinds of coffees tend to do better? And, you know, what's up with geisha? And, you know, how do you pour latte art? And so that was like a lot of pressure in the moment, but a really cool thing to be able to feel like my trip had value in some sort of way. So that's my story.
Really cool. That's really cool. Really cool.
Thanks, Katie.
Emma, Charlie.
Howdy, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Cool. I guess I'll piggyback off the Peru stories and tell one from last summer. I traveled with Red Fox to Cusco last summer, and kind of the main intention for the trip was to visit the Valle Inca producing group and visit some producers kind of based out of Calca. Calca is a pretty sweet spot. It's kind of at the far end of the Sacred Valley. It's pretty close to jumping off point to Machu Picchu, and also the home of where Prudencio runs Valle Inca. So we spent a couple days visiting that group and went out to Yanatile Valley, and stunning out there, really hard to get to, lots of travel, but beautiful stuff out there. And I had bookend a couple days at the end of the trip to kind of do some touring around and go maybe see some ruins. And this was in the middle of July. And as some of you know, I do a good amount of running here in Colorado. And I had brought my running stuff, and I was intending to do some running and maybe kind of tie in some ruins with some running, and didn't really have a plan for what I was going to do or like where I was going to end up at the end of the trip. But I had a couple days to spare and was just kind of like in the middle of the Sacred Valley. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I had been to Machu Picchu probably 10 years before on a trip, and was like, yeah, I kind of want to go to Machu Picchu, but I kind of want to see some other stuff too. But I had also brought with me a bag of our Peru Santa Teresa, which was a coffee that we get from the Huadquiña group, which is kind of on the other end of the Cusco spectrum. So on the other side of Machu Picchu, there's a whole different jumping off point to get there. There's a whole different kind of route you need to take. And I was looking at the map, trying to figure out some kind of run that I could do and some kind of like, you know, maybe I can get an Airbnb here or stay there for the night. And I was like, well, the only way to get into Machu Picchu from the side we were on is to take the train that you get from Cusco or from Ollantaytambo, which is another one of the ruin spots there. And I was doing some research, and the last time I had went into Machu Picchu, you can come in from the other side and just kind of like walk along the train tracks. And can also come in from the other side on the Inca Trail, but you need like reservations and it's super expensive and you need to plan that way in advance. And I was, just going off spontaneity, and I was like, okay, doing some research. I was like, I wonder if you can get in from the other side along the train tracks, and found out that you can, but it's pretty far. It was what I was kind of discovering from Google Maps and from some blog posts is it was like 23 miles from Ollantaytambo to Machu Picchu Village, and then another 10 to Santa Teresa, which is where the Huadquiña group is. And so I was like, okay, that's a long day. Can I do it? There's also the middle of the winter there, so you don't really know what you're gonna get weather-wise. Was checking out forecasts, and I was like, okay, like I get a Airbnb in Ollantaytambo, leave super early, and I think I can make it to Machu Picchu Village by 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Regroup there.
What's the distance?
So what I was looking at, it was from the start of the train tracks where you jump off, it was 23 miles to Ollantaytambo to Machu Picchu Village, which they used to call Aguascalientes when I was there 10 years before. So I was like, okay. So left my big backpack at the hostel, or sorry, the Airbnb in Ollantaytambo. Set off for Machu Picchu Village with just my running vest, water, a bunch of if you ever go to that region, there's like little coca snacks. We had like quinoa wrapped energy bars with like green coca powder mixed in. So I was like stuffing those in my jacket, stuffing like chocolate and whatever I could find in there. So the goal was to get to Santa Teresa, which there was a sweet eco lodge that Aleko and Allie had recommended there. So the goal was that at the end of the night, spend the night there, meet with Huadquiña in the morning and cup there, and then head back. So left at 7 a.m., jogged on the train tracks. It turned out to be 8 miles just to the start of the train tracks from my Airbnb. So I was like, okay, it's probably going to be a long day. And got to the train tracks where the Inca Trail starts. You kind of got to smooth talk your way through the guards and just kind of pretend like you know where you're going, because you're not supposed to be on the train tracks. They don't really care. So I don't know if you guys have ever done that walk along the train tracks, but you're kind of walking, looking for trains the entire time. And on this side of the tracks, there's way more trains. So every 30 minutes, there'd be a train just zooming past. And there's 10 feet on either side. You just gotta get out of the way, and they honk their horns. So literally 23 miles of this. The one thing that I was told to expect but didn't really plan for was all the barking, snarling dogs that don't see a lot of action on these tracks. So was getting barked at and chased by several dogs along the way, which was never very fun, getting attacked by angry dog in South America, as I'm sure you guys have sometimes experienced. So I get to Machu Picchu Village. It's 20, almost right over a marathon. So it's 27.2 to Machu Picchu Village. Get there, I don't know if you guys have ever been there, but it's tourist central. There's tourists from all over the world just swarming this place. And I stumble in so thirsty, exhausted, just sweating, sunburnt, and find somewhere to have some kind of meal, eat a meal, and I'm like, okay, how far do I have to go? So I'm Santa Teresa is 7 more miles. So I saddle up, sit there for an hour eating and ready, kind of get my energy back and start jogging. And on this side of the tracks, there's way more people. I passed literally 1,000 people, and it's kind of the back way into Machu Picchu, where you don't have to spend the money on the train, which is really expensive, or do the Inca Trail, which is really expensive. So all the 20-year-olds and the 30-year-olds, it's just a endless parade of 20 to 30-year-olds from all over the world, kind of just parading, and I'm just jogging past, so we make it to the other side, which is another 7 miles. and get to, it's called Hydroelectrico. There's a big hydroelectric plant there that is, I guess, state of the art, and it was not there when I was there last time, 10 years before that. So it was a big facility, and kind of got there, and there's some taxis there, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna jog the rest of the way. So jogged the rest of the way down to Santa Teresa, end up in the village, and like, what do you know, Waikini is like right in the middle of the village. They don't have GPS or anything. You just like walk up, and I'm like, oh, there's the destination. Checking the Eco Lodge, tracked the final mileage at like 36 and a half or something like that for the day, which is like a 60K. So had my bag of Santa Teresa, delivered this to Waikini, and they're like, yes, we'll see you in the morning for some cupping. So woke up the next morning, cupped a bunch, and it's funny, I'll share some photos on my Instagram, but if you see in the like the cupping photos, I'm in my running gear. I have like spandex and shorts on, and like you know,
That's
my
just
running vest, and like, you know, these guys are like looking at me like, what is this dude wearing? I'm like, how did you get here? You ran here from Oya to Tumble? Like, it's not possible. No way, it's not possible.
Dylan,
yeah,
should we do that on the next trip to Peru? A little run
Definitely.
from Cusco to Santa
Definitely.
Fe.
Yeah, I don't think I was trying to get into the New York City Marathon this year, but I think this might have to be a better alternative.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Oya to Tumbo to Santa Teresa, or the Oya to Tumbo to Machu Picchu Village Marathon. It's like pretty close. It's like just over 27.
What's the average elevation of that?
Right, I was just gonna ask.
Yeah, so the cool thing is it's mostly downhill. So you start in Oya
Oh,
to
no big
Tumbo.
deal then.
No, it's high, 3,000 meters.
Easy.
Yeah, like exactly. Oya to Tumbo is around 3,000 meters, and you run down into Santa Teresa, which is probably at like 1,200 meters, 1,300 meters.
3,000 meters, sorry, for those who don't know, is basically 10,000 feet.
Yeah. But it's like I live at 7,000 feet, and I'm jogging at those altitudes regularly, so it wasn't like, you know, a big difference to what I'm normally doing. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have done it. But it wasn't altitude kind of was the main concern. It was more the snarling dogs and the trains.
They'll never forget that visit though. I would love to hear some of the stories that the families tell. Like this one time this gringo ran here from Ollantaytambo, cupped some coffees and left.
And he ran back. Yeah.
Brought us you didn't run back, did you?
No, that was kind of the tentative plan, but I was so beat up, man. I was more than I was planning on doing. So I happily took the train out of there. I did run from the Hydroelectrico to Machu Picchu Village, which was like 6 or 7 miles, and it was a slog. But I got there
It's
and
straight
I was
uphill.
like, sit on the train, like drinking beer, and like had some instant coffee, and it was like just chilling on the way back.
So you're saying that 72 miles would have been too much in one day?
for the weekend.
I get
yeah.
that. I get that.
Ultra marathon.
Emma, you want to go next?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll keep it kind of short and sweet because my computer may die. But in an undisclosed country, I was picked up at an undisclosed airport. I've been traveling for probably like 18 hours. Looked like shit. Was dehydrated. Was super tired. So I was picked up by a driver, who will be left unnamed. And
this is rough.
I like where this is going.
Yeah, this is.
And if you know me, this is like even more hilarious. And if not, it's a really good intro. So I was picked up by this driver. He was super sweet. It's like a 5 or 6 hour drive from the airport to where we were going. And I was so tired. I was just totally like stretched out in the back seat, taking a nap, resting up. Around sunset, he stops for gas at a gas station in the middle of the country. And I decided that I needed some chips. So I got out of the car, went into the little convenience store, bought some chips, came back out, and he was gone.
Oh, God.
I asked the gas station attendant who was filling gas, I was like, hey, where'd my guy go? And they were like, Elfway.
Was your bag in the car?
He's gone.
Oh, no.
And I was like, Elfway? He's gone? It's like, what the? They're like, yeah, he's gone. Sorry. And I'm pretty sure that they thought that he had left me for good reason, especially considering probably what I looked like at that moment in time. And so I go inside. I'm like, there's no service because we're in the middle of the country. It's dusk. The sun is almost completely set from the sky. It started to rain. And I was like, can I please have your Wi-Fi? Because there's no service. And my driver just left me here and I don't know why. And I, like 3 hours from the airport, another 2 or 3 hours where I need to go. And they would not give me their Wi-Fi. And they were like, sorry, no, because I think that they thought I was a hooligan. So they were like, you can go to the restaurant down the street. There's like a restaurant maybe half a mile away. So I walked over there. The Wi-Fi didn't work there, walked back, totally had gotten rained on. And then finally there was this like abuela who felt really bad for me and she gave me the Wi-Fi. And I got in touch with the people I was meeting who was coordinating with the driver. And I was like, hey y'all, you know, my driver accidentally left me. And they were like, oh my God, there's been an accident. Are you okay? And I was like, no, there's been no accident. He left me at the gas station, and they just could not comprehend that he had left me at the gas station. So I was confused for a while. And then they're like, okay. And I was like, I did not get his number at the airport. I can't call him. Can you please call him? And so they called him and they were like, is Emma okay? Like, what's going on? There's been an accident. And he was like, what are you implying? Like, of course she's fine. And like was getting angry and kept hanging up. And then they called me back and they're like, look, this is so-and-so's dad. He's kind of like the Don of the family. We have to be really respectful of him. He's getting really angry, like implying that he did something wrong. And so we're trying to figure out what's going on. Are you sure like you got left? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure I'm at this gas station. It's been like 2 hours. And so finally they get a hold of him. And he's getting pissed again. And they're like, turn around. Like, she's not in the back seat. So he turns around and he's like, oh, shit. And drives back and got me. But, yeah, I was stuck there for a few hours. And
unreal.
Finally, the woman who gave me her number, I still have it written down somewhere. She, like, gave him these evil death stares and was like, you're stupid. That's so dangerous. But pretty funny.
Why didn't you disclose the country?
Because the driver family and, you know, not great business.
I see.
Yeah.
We can
All good.
disclose that this was not a Red Fox trip, though, right, Emma?
Yeah, it was not a Red Fox trip.
When did the story become funny?
I thought it was hilarious immediately, but that's because it's me and
It's kind of funny.
pretty. I think it's really funny.
Okay.
I mean, all is well.
Cool. Adam, did you want to tell a story this time?
What's our time looking like?
There's time for one more if you want to do it.
All right, I got a quick one. I can take us back to Peru in the rainy season. I don't know if anybody's ever traveled with like video equipment and film crew, anything like that. Before, I know Aleko has, but it's a big task, especially when you're the one in charge of kind of like leading it. So there was, I think this was in 2010, definitely pre-Red Fox days. And there was a film crew from CNBC, right? That's the one that does the business, like broadcasting or whatever. At the time, the C market had gone up to like $3 or just over $3 or something. So there's like, you know, price crisis, everyone talking about, oh my God, your cup of coffee is going to be more expensive, you know, and everyone trying to figure out why, this whole thing. And so they had contacted a roaster of mine, or a client of mine at the time, who was a roaster, and wanted to figure out, you know, what's going on in the supply chain, why why is coffee, what's happening at the farm level? Are farmers actually making more money, or we're just paying more for nothing, kind of thing? I think that was sort of their angle. But it was a news crew and the anchor who they kind of like toss this gig to as a sort of as like a I think he sits around and reports on very boring money stuff all the time. They gave him a gig to leave the country, and it was his first time out of the country. The producer was an older guy who probably towards the end of his career, I'm guessing, but had done some traveling, but pretty much just like not to stereotype or anything, but classic, really quick, moving, talking, thinking New Yorker kind of guy.
Hey, what are you saying?
Hey. Again, not to stereotype. I consider I'm a little bit slow moving, so I actually admire that. And I'm also, unlike Katie, I go to these trips extremely unprepared in terms of scheduling and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, this film crew brought down literally hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of cameras. And the two people that I was like, all right, these guys are cool, were the camera guys. One of them had covered like kind of border stuff in Mexico, and he spoke Spanish. And the other guy spent like years in Iraq and Afghanistan and a lot of places in some pretty heavy situations, like filming stuff. So I knew they were good, but they were also in charge of carrying all the cameras. The roaster wanted to take him to the most remote, kind of smallest scale farmer that was in the supply chain of coffees we sold him. So that, we picked Peru. So we went all the way down to Peru into the northern part of Peru in the Alto Mayo Valley in San Martin region. It was in March, so it was still pretty heavy rainy season. And the only way up to these farms, so you have to fly to Lima, and then you fly, up another flight to Tarapoto. And a lot of driving, a lot of hours in the car. We had 3 vans because of all the equipment was taking up at least half of a van. And the way to get to the farms up there, the only way is to walk. And I think it was the equivalent of like maybe 10 kilometers, 12 kilometers, something like that. But it was straight up a hill, and it was extremely muddy because it was raining all the time. So they'd hired all these like mules to carry all the equipment and people's back. We were taking up camping gear because the farm we were going to had very limited sort of accommodations. So we were going to be camping. And so we loaded up these mules with a bunch of equipment, and I think there was obviously very differing abilities of hiking, sort of fitness, I guess, in terms of like the people in the group that we were with. And so the train was a very, very slow train, and sort of to not dwell too far in the story. It was just extremely tedious. The guys were trying to film the whole time. We get up there. I think people are way, way, way out of their element. Hadn't really done enough to prep, sort of like, especially the anchor guy who is like the talent for what it would be like to be in a foreign country amidst, different socioeconomic status, things like that. And he was, I think in like sort of shell shocked. So he would try to get on the camera and kind of deliver the talk and almost be able to not do it. We had to interview the farmer. We spent like 2 days up there. And it kept raining and kept raining and kept raining. So the way down, I'm just thinking this is going to be hell because we have to go straight down the hill through the crazy mud. And also, like, as a personal side note to the story, I had been up in that region like 6 months before in a really, really horrible car accident. So I was like dealing with my own kind of trauma of being back in this place and being back on the road and knowing we had to catch timelines to catch our flight back to Lima and all that stuff. I'm like, we need to leave. I know you guys want to get more footage. We have to, this is going to be bad. So they pressed, they wanted to do more interviews. They wanted to film more like time-lapse shots from, above and all these things. And eventually got them to leave, like maybe 5 hours ahead of like schedule, super early one morning. And we start heading down, and the first sign that this was going to be a rough day was the producer guy, the kind of quick talking, was sort of talking with the anchor as he was running. And the anchor, at first everyone tried to carry all their own stuff. By this point, everybody had everything on the mules, and we learned that if you don't get out of the way of a mule, it will literally walk over you. So we had to like kind of train people that like if you are not, if you're not going to be able to move quickly, the mule needs to move quickly. So you got to get out of the way. So the mules kind of take off with all this camera equipment, camping equipment, all this stuff. And by the way, the anchor guy left all of his brand new REI gear, shoes, was like literally like throwing clothes at this family, and crying as we were like leaving and saying thank you, all this stuff. It was interesting to sort of witness. And then on the way down, the anchor man or the producer guy, as he's walking and talking, kind of never really stopped talking and thinking, he all of a sudden slips and falls down. And I see him heading straight down this hill, and like I dive down and kind of grab his like the back of his shirt and his arm, and he's already kind of walking with sticks. He couldn't really walk, and so I sort of pull him up, and he like, you know, that at that moment he basically stopped talking and he just started getting angry. He was like, "Why are we up here?" And I was like, "Whoa, you wanted to come up here," you know. So and you know, he basically stopped talking at that point, just wanted to get back down. Was on 2 sticks, you know, hobbling down. So the first part of the group that kind of went ahead with the mules was like far ahead, and we started to get, I had, you know, had to basically drag him up and get him back to sorts. He was kind of cut up a little bit, and was with a couple other people that were local, that were Peruvian, that kind of knew, you know, knew their way. So we thought, but we ended up getting kind of separated and not catching up with the other group. And the anchor guy or the producer guy is just getting more and more out of sorts, getting more mad. He's like, you know, the profanities are flying, or why they left us up here, we're going to be stuck. I was thinking like, it's going to be cool, man. They're down there. Just don't worry. And, you know, eventually we start like, you know, calling out for the people, saying like, hey, because there's a couple of like Y's in the row, we're not really sure. So we're calling, we hear a couple of the, you know, some of the whistles of people. So we kind of follow the whistles a little bit and end up down at this one kind of junction where, the first part of the group is held up by a group of some indigenous people there with guns. They're literally holding them up with guns and not letting them proceed. They're sort of questioning what this whole you know, posse is doing up in their lands, because it's their lands. And we had to convince them that the cameras and all this stuff weren't there to extract anything from the forest. I think they were super sensitive to people coming up, you know, maybe more science-based people coming up, extracting things from the forest without their permission or without their knowledge or anything like that. I think we were able to convince them that we were, you know, we were friendly. We weren't trying to take anything from their land, and they sort of, you know, allowed us to pass through that area and end up getting down to the vans. It was all good, you know, by the end of the day. And then, you know, I kind of made peace with that road, that piece of road too. We made it through without any hitches on the accident front that time. So it was good on a personal level. But yeah, that was the last time I'm ever traveling with a film crew, with people that aren't experienced and doing that kind of stuff. So that's my story.
Good story.
Cool.
Almost told the Mexico City one, but I decided to hold that off.
So did I.
That's like
might.
the rated R version. Dylan wanted to tell that story. So.
Like
Yeah, maybe for the podcast.
Can I tell this story?
Why not? Why the censorship?
I don't know. You tell us, Emma.
Yeah.
You want to hear my version?
No, we don't. Great. Let's wrap it there then. Thanks, everybody.
Call me after.
Yeah, you guys can have your own little group chat somewhere else offline.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to end it for the week. We really appreciate having everybody on.
Thanks, Aleko.
Yeah.
Thank you. Super fun.
Thanks, everyone.
We're going to do this every week.
This time,
we're going to do some roaster stories next week. We have Jamie from Tartine, Jen Apodaca is coming on. A few other people. Should be really fun. But you'll hear more from us on that soon. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Awesome.
See you well, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.